Right, this is Bouncy Tread. This is the third of my sort of recordings, and it's really just something I was messing around with the other day. I was really bored. It's lockdown. The only thing I'm doing is working from home, and in the evenings it's really quiet. So I'm very much into my Cricket 19 universe and creating teams, which I've been doing for a few months now, even before the lockdown. But I had a sudden burst of energy in around January, and just started creating like I did the year before with Ashes. With Ashes, I think I did pretty much every test playing nation. I definitely remember doing Sri Lanka, and I left England. I think I did England and Australia. I don't think I covered every single decade, but I covered most decades. I certainly did Pakistan, I did India, I did West Indies, which I always start with, and I can't remember what else, but I did quite a lot of it. So my intention was to do the same again for this one. It's taken a bit longer. I think there's more. I don't know why. Maybe it's just been busier this year than the year before, but I've enjoyed it no less. It definitely takes your mind off all the negative stuff that's going on in the world today, certainly with COVID-19. So I'll continue. So I'll start off with today's one, which is how I go about creating a team. I'm going to use a team I'm currently working on at the moment, which is England 1950s. So if you go down here, I've already created England 1920s, which I explained will have the majority of the players that played in that decade. There's my Herbert Sutcliffe. I was quite proud of him. Actually, he looks kind of like him. The haircuts are rubbish in 19, but that definitely looks like Herbert Sutcliffe. It took me a good month and a half to get him right. So there's my England 20s. Some of these are Gleeso's bases and me going over the top. Gleeso's bats tend to be a bit darker, as you can see. So if I've done anything to these, I'll just change their skills with a bit of research, extra research, I should say. There's Percy Fender, someone who is a quite flamboyant character in a British cricket circles in the 1920s. Not the best of batsmen, that's for sure, but still he can hold his own. And I found that in the 1920s, this was an era of obviously players and gentlemen, and amateurs and professionals. And a lot of the amateurs here, Greville Stevens is another one. He was a young captain for England. You can see didn't have the best of skills, but yet went on to captain a team. I'm thinking of a few here, but in this particular team, some of the best ones are the people like Andy Sandham, who I think has a triple century to his name. Percy Chapman was a flamboyant, larger-than-life English bats captain of the era. So, without getting too diverted, we go on to England 30s. Of course, the great Wally Hammond is in there, great batsman, a terrific bowler as well, but it's very hard to get all of his stats in there for bowling. But definitely as a batsman, again, it's very hard because I have to have him as an all-rounder for him to get played, for him to bowl. But his batting was superb. But he's given a 90. He was even better than that. I think his test average, top of my head, is 58. Duleep Singhji, player that didn't play very long in the 1930s. Very talented batsman. I think illness curtailed his career. Obviously, the villainous Douglas Jardine. There was a good face created by myself and Gleeso. Gleeso created it first, and I touched it up. I think I might have made it a little bit worse than Gleeso's, but either way, it's still a good. I certainly worked on the third profile a lot for Douglas Jardine. I just get the feeling his face could be a little bit longer and narrower, but generally that's a pretty good one by Gleeso. And like I said, I messed around with it a bit. Walter Robbins, and there's lots of great players in the Headley Verity. Got a funny face he's got there. Great spinner. Larwood, I just did mess around with him. He looks better in the game than he does right here. It looks like he's got something on his cheek there, but actually when he's bowling, he looks quite accurate. Again, Gleeso did a version of him, original version. There's the Prince, the other one is known as a conscientious objector. He was the one in the Bodyline series that said to Douglas Jardine, I refuse to refuse to field with Bodyline. He's also the father of the Nawab of Pataudi, Mansour Ali Khan Nawab of Pataudi, who plays for India in the 1960s and was captain, quite a legendary captain. So quite a lot of history behind these players. Now then, we get to the team I was working on, which is there's England 1940s as well. Dennis Compton, great player, played for Arsenal as well at the same time, otherwise known as the Brill Cream Boy for his hair, as you can see. I would keep working on his face. Leonard Hutton, who Lisa did a very good job with the face. I left it alone, just tweaked the perks and so forth. Bill Edrich, quite an exciting player. Known as a Middlesex twin with Dennis Compton. Jack Robertson was actually a backup batsman, but he was quite good in his own right. But to be fair, the better batsman in his position, opener, were Len Hutton and Cyril Washbrook, as you can see. There's good old Cyril there. Stout character, opening bat. There's Jack Ilkin, who was Jack Eichen, I should say, who was a very defensive player, but was also quite a linchpin type of player for the team because there's such an exciting lineup. And their lineup was, as you can see there, Leonard Hutton, Cyril Washbrook, Bill Edrich, Dennis Compton, Joe Hardstaff, a player that I think his history is always forgotten, but was quite an extraordinary stroke player himself. His career crossed the war. You see, a lot of these players lost a lot of their history that they could have created because of the Second World War, and actually went off to fight. God bless them all. There's Eric Hollies, a player there that I think was the last man to get Don Bradman out in a Test match. He is the man responsible for keeping the Don to 99 and not 100. Isn't that weird how that all panned out? But there's Eric Hollies, a good spinner in his own right. England had a good spinner then also called Douglas Wright. He was a terrific player. You can all look these guys up, of course. I created him. And other players like Norman Yardley, who was another captain of the future. Medium pace bowler, if I remember correctly. But I try to make the squads as big as I possibly can, because one day someone's going to do a tournament, I'm sure, with these players, and long after we've moved on to Cricket 20 or whatever it's going to be called, someone will always go back to 19. I think it's quite a breakthrough game in the series and play these players like they do with Ashes at the moment. I don't think I've ever went back to the old games. Once I've moved on, but I sense that people will come back to 19. I think DB14, I didn't get it when it came out, but I definitely enjoyed playing it a couple of times anyway, until this one. I think Ashes I quite enjoyed. So let's go to 50s. I'll show you how to create a player. So here we are, England 1950s. As you can see, I've created nobody at the moment. So the first thing I do is I use a couple of books. There's a book called The Complete Who's Who of Test Cricketers. I use that. That's by a great writer called Christopher Martin Jenkins. You may get an old copy if you find it. It's really old now. It's 30 years old, the book. But what he did was he did a biography of every test player. The book was originally released in 1980s. I think there are other books and versions of it. Lots of cricket books with lots of profiles. I do have another one floating around somewhere which I bought about 10 years ago. It's from another publisher, but I can't find it, sadly, for the time I look. But Wikipedia these days and Cricinfo is a great source for getting profiles. Some of the Christopher Martin Jenkins profiles I use are in there, but also there's other writers. I use Cricket Archive if I really want to dig deep down the rabbit hole. I've got a subscription to them, the Cricketer magazine. And there's every issue from 19 whenever up until 1990, I think. I've got every access. So if I really wanted to go down a rabbit hole, I really could. Or go further than a rabbit hole. And of course I've got hundreds of cricket books like most of us do. So if I need to delve into a bit more detail about Alex Stewart or that era of the 90s, I've got Alex Stewart's biography, Michael Atherton's biography, Nasser Hussein's biography, which I bought like 10 years ago. And all of these books are pretty good books to read. I've got Dennis Lilly's. I think I've got Geoffrey Boycott's one, which I bought 10, 15 years ago. An amazing, very, very brilliant book about English cricket. And in those days, I think one of the best cricket books I've ever read is that one. Geoffrey Boycott's book. Just trying to think, actually, now that I think about it. I'm sure I've read Michael Holding's original one, Viv Richards. And obviously, these days, like I said, the internet is such a great source for information anyway. CrickBuzz is another one. You can get lots of information on modern players, particularly. The whole landscape has changed. But Cricinfo is my go-to. I think Wikipedia, I mean, I don't trust it all the time, but there is a section in there which I do use a lot called, just type in a list of English test players. So at the moment on my screen, on my laptop, I do have it set already on that one. It tends to be pretty accurate from what I can tell. So I'm looking at the post-war years, 1946 to 1959. And what I do is because it's got sortable columns, I can see who's played more than 10 test matches. Because that's who I tend to single out first. If I can get scored a 20 with 10 test matches as a minimum, then I'm happy. So if I look down the list, bearing in mind I've done some players from the 1940s already that could cross over to the 50s, I know, looking at my screen, the first player that's going to get into the squad is a player from 1948. The last players that got into the squad for the 1940s started in 1947. So my cut-off point is 1948 to start in the people who made a debut in 1948 that can get into the squad are starting with the great Jim Laker. So what I do is I create Jim Laker very quickly, go to create, see how long it takes me. It should, if you time me, it should take 10 minutes. 21:11 is the time now, 11 minutes past 9. So if I just dotted Jim Laker, oh, wrong, straight away. Jim, don't need his date of birth, Laker. All of a sudden, because I'm timing myself, I'm making mistakes. Change his shirt name by pressing triangle. Shirt number doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. Sometimes it gives the commentary name if it matches up. It doesn't in this case. He's an Englander. Managed team. And I pop him in England 50s. That's the very first version of Jim Laker. So what we need is appearance. So looking on screen, there is no height for him. But if it says tall in any description, I'll make him 6 foot and above. I do believe Jim Laker was taller than 5'10", but lower than 6'2". So I'm going to give him a 6 foot, which goes against my rules. Normally, I make every player 5'10", which is the average height of an all-rounder based on Gary Sobers. If it says tall, obviously it's 6'2" and above. And anyone 6'2" and above tends to have their list, whatever the era, tends to have their height in there anyway, in a description somewhere, because they're quite tall. If they're wicketkeeper, it tends to be about 5'7". Anyone less than that, then their height tends to be quite well known because of the fact they're really small. Like Titch Freeman, they'll always say Titch meaning small is going to be about, I think it's 5'5". Sonal Gavaskar is well known to be 5'5". But some other cricketers don't. There's not a lot of heights in time, say before 1980. So you have to figure it out from team photos or put some sort of formula in place until you find out. So in this case, Jim is there. I don't have to worry about the appearance just yet. Now then, his role, if you go on Wikipedia, it says he was a right-hand off-break. Okay, so that's quite quick to do. Finger spin, right hand. Yeah. He's probably going to be a lower order, and we know he was a bowler. I know that just from knowing Jim Laker's stats. However, he's not a bad batsman. So the first thing I notice, what I do is I take the test average first. Jim Laker's test average as a batsman is 14. I multiply that by 2, and that becomes 28. Each of these blocks represents 20. That's 20, that's 40, that's 60. So in this case, if it's a 30 or 28, he'll be there. So originally, I just do that right across the board, and you get a feel for these players as well. So what that's really saying is that he's worth a 3 out of 10 if you take these as that first block being 2, 4, 6, and so on. You get to 10. In this case, he's a 3 out of 10. Would I consider him a 3 out of 10 as a batsman? No. I'd probably give him a 4 out of 10. So somewhere I'm going to try and increase his stats just a little bit. Come out of that. Look for Jim Laker. There he is. He's got a 3 at 32. So he's not the best at the batting, but I'll leave that for now. That's not how I normally do it. It's just I'm showing what I can do. Bowling. This is where it really comes into him. He's got a 21 average. That tells you straight away Jim Laker was from a wicket-taking point of view, he had 193 wickets in his test career, which in those days is extraordinary. It means he was quite a good bowler, which we already know. He was 21. So what you do is take 21 from 110. That gives you 89. And there's where I start my starting point for Jim Laker. I know that's 80. If I do this all the way through, that's going to be 87, I think it comes out at. And then it's the details. So at the moment, I've got Jim Laker roughly in at the moment. I've only been doing this for 4 minutes, as I can see. Fielding, again, if I don't have any information on Jim at the hand, I literally just do this. Put outfield on at 4. And then drop it in increments. Just to make sure my universe is fairly fair. With catches I can go, sometimes I go 3, sometimes I go 4. Lately again I began to swing back to 4. Although I don't know why. I think my outfielders are, I think I put them as good. So there we go, that's what I do. 7 out of 10 for me means good. So if I go through my ratings, like I said, I take the test batting average, double it. Or I take the bowling and subtract it from 110. That gives me some start. Then also I factor in the fact of what level out of 10 would they be. 10 being godlike. So 5 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8 is very good, 9 is outstanding, and 10 is clearly godlike. So you start to get an idea now of how I can start to reset some of what I already set. So Jim Laker wasn't a bad batsman from what I understand. Again, I'm not looking at anything, I'm just looking at his averages. Okay, so at the moment, here he is, 36. I want to try and get him to, that's about right. You start to get a feel for Jim or these players. With the bowling, as I can see, he's 87. Again, that's about right. So I already know that when I'm doing my stats for my players, Jim Laker is, I think, the only man, at least in recent times. I think Kumble has now equalled it. But isn't he a man that's took, I think it's 20 wickets in 1956 in a match? I can't remember. Anyway, now I'm going to go into a bit more detail with Jim Laker. I'm up to 6 minutes already. So I've got this big biography book, like I said. I'll just quickly go to Jim Laker, find him in here. ABCDFGHIJKL. And here he is, Jim Laker, and see what it says about him that I don't know. And there's an off spinner. Here we go. Jim Laker will be forever remembered for his amazing analysis of 19 for 90 in 1956. He took 19 wickets in a match. In his prime, he was perhaps the best of all spinners, with a model high action, sharp spin and great accuracy. So that starts to tell me about his personality as a bowler. So what we'll do here, don't make him too overpowering, but still. There we are, Jim Laker, skills, personality. I could make him precise. I don't know his strike rate at the moment, but it tells you that he was a precise bowler and he was accurate. So therefore I can improve some of his accuracy skills. In fact, I'll give him the maximum. He's still at 89. I reckon he should be a 90. So keep reading. It says sharp spin. So that means he's got some turn in him. There he is. He's up to his 90. Flight and the intelligence to think batsman out. That's what flight means. Give it some air, but probably won't give him all flight. He still stays at 90. He stays at 92 there. What did he greatest spinner of all time? Spinner of all time? He clearly was. I might just give him just a slight down on flight. Okay. A Yorkshireman of very few words. His approach to cricket and life was independent, detached and cool. His figures did his talking for him. 11 times he exceeded 100 wickets in a season. Blah, blah, blah. He shared the main attack with Alec Bedser, Peter Loader and Tony Locke. I think that's it. That's where Jim Laker is. So that's what I do now. I won't mess with his appearance too much just yet. There doesn't seem to be a very good picture of him on his wiki page. Yes, there is. And he looks quite tall. So, just very quickly, I'll go with the jaw size. Go with his face first. Look at his jaw size. Got quite a long face. That could be Jim Laker there. I tend to settle with 6s or this one here, which looks like a good one. 9. To get his jaw right, I'll just take the shape down a bit more because he's got quite a long jaw. And he has a very narrowish type of face, which then now means I have to mess around with his cheeks. This is very quickly. I'm doing this for the sake of the video. His cheek position, that's much better. Oh, that's more like him. And now he has a bit more of a curve to his jaw. That's actually looking a lot like him now. And as you can see, his lips are not right. So just quickly mess with his lips. I mean, there's different ways to do it. I normally do eye height first, which I didn't do this time, because I'm rushing through this. As his eye height, a little bit of a shorter nose. His mouth is close to his nose. And his eyes are slightly slanted. They're very much together, the eyes. His face is anything between his eyes. His nose is this is just a quick Jim Laker, like I said. I will fix him another time. And then take the beard away. Didn't seem to have a moustache. Okay, that's better. And now let's fix his hair. Again, the hair options are rubbish. That's not going to do. That could do, but different era. It's more like him, but again, too wide at the sides. That might fit. That's a better fit. There you go. Okay, so then just give him a nice little bat. Probably wears a hat on in the field. No helmet. Give him a hat from a bat from the era, which we can't see at the moment. Give him a vanilla bat or one of these bats. And what I like to do is just quickly tidy up the feet. There you go. That's it. And there we have a nice Jim Laker. Like I said, it can be changed. Just looking at his screen, he's 6 foot. I think it's about right. I think he could be higher than that, you know. His neck is not as wide, and this is where I get like a bit funny with my creations. I tend to start messing with them a bit. I know his chin height was a little. In fact, it's almost perfect actually on this. There you go. And then I have no footage of him, but I can just guess it or read some sort of description of him. But anyway, that's Jim Laker done. Does that make sense? Yep, hopefully that does. So, goodbye, Jim. Oh, I did forget one key thing. I knew there was something. And I'm up to 10 minutes now. He is clearly a spin master. So that solves the gold. There we go for the silver. We know he's got flight. But he does have, he did play for a long time, Jim Laker. I'd say he's at a decent fitness level. Nothing to suggest anything more than what's on here. But what I can do is put in that he's a flight master. Yep. And that he's pretty accurate. But I don't think accuracy is on here as much as it used. Turn. Just look through these. There we are. Flight, turn, accuracy. And that takes all of them out there. It's up there somewhere. Where is it going again? That's it. Flight, turn, accuracy, spin bowling. There you go. That's Jim done. 11 minutes I think I took. 13 minutes because I forgot that last bit. I was mucking around a bit too much. There we go. So Jim now is done. I export him to the academy just in case anyone's looking for him. You never know who's looking. All-time best. And share. So that's Jim Laker done. That's kind of how I do the players. So just to finish this off. And then I quickly look in there. Is he in the right spot? In the 1950s. There he is. But it's saying he's an all-rounder. So quickly go into it. I'll just check that again. I just checked it. I can see a mistake was made. Find him on my little list. Laker. Jim Laker. Personality. he could be a bowling all-rounder because batting's not actually bad, but I don't want to deprive him of any bowling skills he could have had. Nothing's really changed there. Nothing's going to change here. If I see a bit of footage where it shows his position, I will change that. But at the moment, the only thing I would change here again might be the skin tone. I tend to mess around with these two and make him that's more like Jim Laker, or if he's a bit gingerish or red-headed. Do that. Yeah. There you go, Jim Laker. So the last thing I'll do again is just fire him back out into the ether again. Sorry, Jim. So that's that one done. Lovely. So I will see if I've got enough time to do another one. I will try and do one more. Now it's saying 71 for Jim Laker, which is quite low when you think about it. But it's because it's only reflecting his... We think of Jim Laker as a bowler. Clearly, he's a great bowler. But his batting was, it's decent. It's not bad for a bowler. Fielding that's the average I put in for a fielder. 7 out of 10 or 72 out of 100 is a good. So he doesn't show me anything else unless I become aware of it or someone enlightens me further. In fact, that's where I'll stop that one there for Jim Laker, and I will continue with some more afterwards.